During the 20th century, a wide-ranging Hispanic immigration took place in the United States. The history of Latino migration into the U.S. has complex origins rooted in the nation's territorial and economic expansion. The first significant flow of immigrants occurred at the end of the American-Mexican War, when the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo was signed in 1848. Under this treaty, the Republic of Mexico gave the U.S. more than one-third of its territory, and the United States imposed the U.S. citizenship on the former Mexicans. From the 1800s to the 1900s, there was very little immigration influx, but at the beginning of the 20th century, it significantly increased. The ongoing flow of immigrants into the U.S. created many problems for the U.S. legal system, due to the fact that many of them were entering the country as illegal immigrants. In the Southwest, especially in Texas, legal and illegal immigration had a significant effect, since it created what an author called a third country, where the customs and the traditions of the Mexicans and the Americans were blended. The Mexicans were not the only Hispanic community to move to America for economic purposes. Puerto Rican immigration has many more complicated origins. As did the Mexicans, the Puerto Ricans moved to the mainland in order to have a better lifestyle. One of the other basic reasons for immigration was political persecution. In fact, the 20th century saw a significant increase in the number of Cuban immigrants. Also, that began in 1959 when Fidel Castro took control of the Cuban government. In the 1990s, Cuban Americans accounted for almost 1 million immigrants in the United States. The majority of them were most frequently refugees. Cuban immigrants had more benefits compared to the other Hispanic communities due to their refugee status, as they were provided with financial and health assistance. Thanks to the close distance, the largest Cuban settlement was and still is today Florida. In the last 10 years, the Hispanic community have contributed to the growth of the United States. Due to their growing importance, Hispanics are no longer considered a minority, but a majority. This increasing number of Hispanics in the United States is giving birth to what many researchers call Hispanization. The U.S. society is gradually assimilating all the aspects of the Hispanic culture, and it is happening much faster than anyone expected. As a matter of fact, the U.S. is the second largest Latin or Spanish-speaking country in the world, after Mexico, of course. The influx of many Spanish-speaking immigrants to the United States has increased the number of Spanish speakers in the country. Over half of the country speaks Spanish and reside in California, Texas, and Florida. And a typical phenomenon known as Spanglish was created by blending together English and Spanish on U.S. borders. Other than being the product of this combination of languages, Spanglish was created because many bilingual communities spoke both languages. Spanglish is surely a phenomenon that has complex roots. It is the language of the borders, a language that mirrors the identity of those people that still today can't identify themselves. To live and be part of a society, it is necessary to speak a language because this allows any Hispanic to have a social and political identity in the U.S. This hybrid language for many Hispanics reflects their particular border condition. With their ongoing growth, Hispanics play a key role in the U.S. politics. They started to make their voices be heard in the 1960s when Cesar Chavez founded the United Farm Workers. Thanks to the Civil Rights Movement led by Cesar Chavez in 1965, the Immigration and Nationality Act was approved. This act changed America's demographics and even increased the number of immigrants from South America. The immigration reform and the increase in the number of Hispanics are two factors that deeply influence the politics of this nation. In the last decades, many politicians have worked on different immigration bills in order to win votes. They especially pinpointed illegal immigration since it has always been a controversial issue in the U.S. In the 2000s, other immigration issues surfaced, especially those concerning the Hispanic youths. Many of them have graduated from high school, although they are still considered unauthorized citizens. In 2001, Senator Dick Durbin and Orrin Hatch introduced the DREAM Act to Congress. The DREAM Act has not been approved yet. Many politicians, especially Republicans, due to their conservative principles, are not in favor of this act. But fortunately, in 2008, there was a politician who greatly supported the Dreamer kids, and that was Barack Obama. Today, thanks to him, many Hispanic youth can dream. During these years, Obama and his administration have passionately fought for the approval of this immigration law. In 2012, it was not approved, but it was illegally implemented. Obama's candidature in 2008 represented a turning point for the nation's politics. From the start, he focused on how important it was to withdraw the American troops from Iraq and to foster a better healthcare system. During his campaign, he continued the Democratic tradition of appealing to Latinos by focusing on key issues such as education, healthcare, the economy, and immigration reform, all of which are topics of central concern for much of the Hispanic community. His slogan, "Yes, we can," which he shared with the United Farm Workers Union and associated with its founder, Cesar Chavez, was well known among Hispanics in its Spanish form, "Si se puede." Obama spent heavily on Spanish language advertising and continued to schedule events in many Cuban, Puerto Rican, and Mexican communities. In 2012, USA presidential elections were taking place, and just like in 2008, Obama had the same spirit to be elected in 2012. In the previous campaign, his magic words were change and hope, whereas in last year's campaign, he told America to keep moving forward. His campaign started with the launching of a 7-minute video entitled "Forward." The video goes through a laundry list of Mr. Obama's accomplishments. The economic stimulus package, he says, saved as many as 4.2 million jobs, the end of the "Don't Ask, Don't Tell" policy discriminating against gays in the military, the end of the Iraq War, the regulation changes to Wall Street and the credit card companies, the auto bailout, and more. With the heavy support of the Hispanic voters, Barack Obama on November 6, 2012, became president for the second time. As soon as his victory was proclaimed, Obama immediately addressed the Hispanic community, renewing his promise to reform the immigration system. In the same year, Puerto Ricans also voted. Although the citizens of the U.S. island could not vote in the U.S. presidential election, many of them were excited to participate in a referendum that could help determine the island's political future, pushing it forward: statehood, greater autonomy, or independence. The referendum is purely symbolic since the United States Congress needs to approve it. This will definitely be a challenge for the Republican Party as it will test its attitude toward the Hispanics. Due to their important contribution to the U.S., the Hispanics celebrate the National Hispanic Heritage Month from September 15 through October 15th. Since 1968, the United States has honored the important role of Americans whose ancestors hailed from Spain, Mexico, and the Spanish-speaking nations of Central America, South America, and the Caribbean. The celebration begins on September 15 because 5 Latin American countries, Costa Rica, El Salvador, Guatemala, Honduras, and Nicaragua, celebrate their Independence Day. In addition, Mexico, Chile, and Belize celebrate their Independence Days on September 16th, September 18th, and September 21st, respectively. For years to come, the growing number of Hispanics and their ever-increasing influence on the United States of America will lead to the development of a bicultural society.